Hello and welcome to the TechCast podcast, the podcast about everything Warhammer and more. Today I have a very special guest coming in after his grand tournament win with an Admech list, and we're here to talk about his experience at this tournament and how he took it down, as well as his opponents and what he would do differently in the future. A returning guest, Matt Estrada, please introduce yourself.
Yep. Hey guys, we've talked before. Last time we were theorizing kind of how the codex would shake out, and the past couple weeks, people have obviously cracked the code, and AdMech is exploding. So we're just gonna kind of go over what how we took down the Chaos Storm GT here in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on again. So when we begin, how many players was this event, and were there any kind of weird rules to it, or was it just pretty standard?
It was pretty standard. I think they're around 50. No kind of big hitters as far as famous names that I can think of. A couple people from the Untitled Midwest Project, formerly Team Happy, so they are probably big players in the meta. Rules were standard. I'm trying to think of any like last minute FAQs or anything, but there wasn't any issues. Terrain was pretty consistent with lots of line of sight blocking. Yeah, I don't think there was anything too odd to report. I know the same weekend, Gibraltar GT over in Europe did only one Forge World slash chapter slash order per list. So no Mars Lucius, no Salamanders, Iron Hands, etc.
Okay.
Not at this event.
Okay, that makes sense. And you said there were 50 players at this event?
50, I think, on the dot, actually.
Oh, wow. So that's a reasonably sized event. A lot of times we see like 30-ish, but 50, yeah, means it's quite a diverse pool. And it was, how many rounds was it? 4 rounds or 5 rounds?
It was 5, so we got the
Five.
we got the whole deal. Chris, the um the TO did a great job facilitating everything. 5 rounds is pretty good. There only ended up being two undefeated, so you don't really like to see that. You'd like to see a overall champion, but yeah, they did a great job, and yeah, 5 rounds,
And that
no
was all
big
in
deal.
one day, or was it across 2 days?
Oh, it was across 2 days.
Okay.
That'd be a lot of Warhammer for one day.
There have been some Iron Man tournaments, and I would definitely like to try to do one of those at some point myself. And it skews the
So
list building, obviously, because you have to build really small unit size lists just because you don't want to be playing too many things at once.
yeah, I
Um,
feel like Knights would definitely have an advantage.
yeah, I think like the Necron vehicle list spawned from those and things like that, like Iron Man events. Um, so tell us a little bit about your list.
So the list was pretty. We tried to not play just the straight what everybody else is doing. Admech Codex is obviously pretty pushed, so we can't differ too much. But we took a Vanguard bomb of 20 troops. Uh, they did work. They carried a lot. Took 15 Rangers. I found 20 to be overkill, so 15, and then three 5-man Ranger units just to go get objectives. The pregame move is insanely important, so they were super great. Um, HQs, we took double manipulus, one low guy, one artisans, low guy for the ignore AP 1 and 2, and transhuman warlord trait with solar flare, artisans just to get to that strength 5 if we needed to, on rangers, which is insanely important against knights and custodes and other other things like that that you just need that just volume of dice to punch through that T8. We took 2 units of infiltrators with tasers, which were one of the most effective units. 85 points to just be on the board wherever they want, block out, turn one charges. Uh, Actually do a lot more damage than you think with 25 shots. They're a really effective unit. 10 Rusty Stalkers and a boat. They sliced and diced and did everything they needed to do. We took 2 units of 3 chickens, 2 las, 1 auto each. The backbone of the anti tank. we took the what do you call it? Sorry, my dog is making a lot of noise.
the
We took
few
we took
slaves.
yep, we took two bombers with chaff launchers. Chaff launchers are the best 20 points I've ever spent. Please take them on every single one of your flyers. It is insanely crazy to watch a Storm Cannon Leviathan just bounce off of it. Um, and then we took the transport, which was a necessary. Every game transport really was valuable. Um, and then we forgot about the old Mr. Marshall himself, the sheriff with the Exemplar's Eternity, being a captain, being a lieutenant for 45 points.
Excellent. So it does look like a bit of a unique list in comparison to what I've kind of seen out there.
And we forgot five breachers. How can we forget five breachers?
Oh, yeah.
The
That's
problem
actually
with Admech right now is we just take too much stuff.
yeah, it seems like you have a ton of models there, even though you're taking quite a few elite models like the Bombers and Iron Striders and Breachers. You're still at like you're getting pretty close there to 100 models, it looks like, I would say.
40, 50. Yeah, we're sneaking up there. I mean, like Rust Stalkers and Infiltrators being 17 points feels way too cheap. Rust Stalkers are probably pretty fairly priced. Infiltrators probably need to go up three. Um, but yeah, there's the amount of just good stuff you can stick in an AdMech is pretty ridiculous.
What would you say was the best unit for this tournament, or what would you say would be like the unit that most surprised you, I guess?
Best unit were definitely the bombers. They take way more firepower than they deserve. Like again, with the innate -1 to hit, most anti-tank is hitting on fours.
Hmm.
So you're cutting firepower in half. And then your T7, which is ridiculous. So your auto cannons, your storm cannons from Leviathans, of which I faced two. Um, your Volkite contemptors, which are everywhere, wounding you on fives is ridiculous. Um, so the fact that your strength, your T7 is just nuts. Um, and then the -1 damage just to make everything way more frustrating. It's it's just ridiculous the amount of damage they can take. And turn one, they can have a 2-up save. So it's just the bombers were definitely MVPs. Infiltrators and rust stalkers were definitely very. I mean, everything in the unit or everything in the army does exactly what it's supposed to do. It just feels like a really well oiled list. The breachers can definitely get tossed for 20 more rangers if you're so inclined, but it just feels like it's pretty solid.
So you mentioned the Breachers there. I was actually going to ask about those because they were kind of an interesting include. What was the inclusion of the Breachers and what did they kind of perform as a function? And how were they armed, by the way? Were they just arc rifle, hydraulic claw, or was there anything interesting
Yep.
on them?
Nope. Arc rifle thunderhammer. Just they really were there to. Honestly, I thought they were going to perform really well in the mirror. If I ran into another Admech player, the ability to get two wounds through and kill a chicken is super nice. Um, so that was the thought process behind the breachers, where that other Admech list would have trouble against them. Um, didn't run into the other Admech. They performed one game really well where we put them in the teleportarium and popped the canonical for the 3d6 drop lowest charge. Um, really effective, actually, way more than you'd think. Your math goes from like a 27% chance of making a deep strike charge to something I think in the 60s.
Yeah, it's
Um,
about 57-ish, I think, when I did it. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head.
yeah, 3d6 drop lowest, spend a CP to reroll it. And that the whole like canonical side of the equation just is the canonicals are very strong if you look at them. -1 to hit in melee makes them kind of obnoxious to deal with if you get them stuck in. +1 strength doesn't matter. 5 feel no pain against mortal wounds, super valuable. Cover to get them at a 1-up, super valuable. Reroll hit wound damage is great in a turn where they shoot and charge. But just 3d6 drop lowest on the charge out of the teleportarium was okay. If I had to do it again, I might deep strike them more often. But they weren't top performers, but for 35 points a model, it's really hard to complain.
Yeah, it's really nice having kind of like a Terminator with a Thunder Hammer and a pretty heavy duty gun on them.
Yeah, just
For
to kind of roll up the middle of the field. They can go through breachable terrain, so you can just kind of hide them and be like, all right, if you get within like 13 of them, I'm gonna pop the charge canonical, and we're probably gonna go tag you. And unless you're like swinging with 3 damage, it's really hard to get them back. They do not die to small arms fire, which is another thing that I liked him against Admech is that if Admech, pops the Vanguard strat to give them, wounds on fours, or if they get the Artisan's buff on the Rangers to give them Strength 5, they're still very tanky with cover.
hmm.
Um, but we never ran into any Admech. We ran into one matchup where we got hit with some 3 damage weapons, but for the most part, they did great. I again, it's kind of hard to take a bad unit. So
Definitely. And how'd you find Arzons to play out for you? Because Arzons is one of those holy orders that's a little less common than say Logai, where we see pretty much everywhere.
Artisans is the one of the big reasons why I'm considering not going to the Skitarii Vanguard cohort, the veteran. Sorry, not Vanguard veteran, because Artisans actually brings a lot more to the table than you think. So if you get bum rush turn one by Fiends, which I've played against a lot of Slaanesh Fiends this tournament, um, uh, they can fall back and shoot. Not against Fiends, but against Keeper of Secrets and stuff. So fast moving armies. Let's just say that. That sounds better. Fast moving armies. Um, Tyranids. Um, turn one charges against orcs are going to be very popular. So the ability just to have, okay, turn one, I didn't get first turn. I'm going to make sure my low guys within 6 inches of my front line to give them fall back and shoot is super helpful. And then if you go first, or if you don't need the fall back and shoot, you just have him power up. He still gets to hand out his buffs because they're not auras. And then next turn you have Strength 5 Ranger squads, which is super important again against T8 and against T4. And well, T5, Light Lord, Terminators, all that jazz. So and then you're always going to use the war gear stratagems for artisans because you're always going to use enrich rounds, and you're always going to use the Ranger one, Galvanic Volley.
Yeah.
So it's a free CP for 25 points and the ability to hit some really strong break points. Um, I don't know how I'm going to live without him. I might be taking a dork like an Engine Seer or something to allow him to keep an artist in Holy Order because it's just that good.
Yeah, that was definitely a big thing when I was looking at that one is just the command point reduction alone for 25 points, considering how command point hungry we are. I was like,
25 points, that's nothing.
yeah, it's like you're buying command points and so many times characters are very expensive that give you free command points. So it's like, oh, well, also the abilities themselves are perfectly fine. What kind of war gear did you have on your different characters? Because obviously you had two Manipuluses and Marshall. I'm guessing you had the Marshall relic that
Yep,
lets
Marshall
you.
Marshall takes Captain Relic. Becomes the world's cheapest reroll aura champion. I mean, you can fit so much in with a 6 inch bubble with the chickens going one to each side. One ranger staying within 6 inches, allowing all 15 rangers to reroll. He's just the man. His warlord trait is fallback is fire point telemetry cache,
Mhm.
which is super strong to give cover. If you pop your rust stalkers out, they mulch something, they hide behind a wall. Turn two, they can be at like a 1-up save. Um, because of the way it's worded, they can um, they can stack it pretty efficiently. The cover saves. Firepoint telemetry cache is also very interesting because let me just make sure I'm reading it right before I lie. Um, if a model is entirely within the terrain feature, um, and it has the infantry keyword, you get an additional armor save. Um, so that is against melee attacks. That is against things that ignore cover. Because it is not a cover save. It is if you're on a terrain feature, Hills are also terrain features.
Mhm.
For those of you who are playing with hills, they're considered area terrain with no really rules about them, but they are area terrain. So Fire Point Telemetry Cache allows you to squeeze a lot of value out of just oh, we're having a dogfight in the middle of the board. Let me put my Rust Stalkers at a 3-up in melee. Let me get my Rangers and Vanguards to a 3-up in melee over the center of the board on a crater or whatever. Combine that with actual cover and the save doctrine, and you're at a 1-up. It's super valuable. So he's always hanging back, doing his thing. Then we have the Artisan's Manipulus, who is taking the lance, the marginal lance, or whatever it's called, mag rail. It's 36 inches. It's 39 on Lucius. That's no joke. I've had a lot. I had a lot of games where it was like I need to chip off 2 more wounds,
Mhm.
and I'm in the canonical where I reroll a hit and a wound. So kapow kapow. Strength 7 minus 3 damage is a lot.
Yeah, it's
Just the
surprisingly good. I mean, we saw they nerfed the Entropic Lance on the Chronomancers, which is interesting comparing the two items. I mean, obviously it's not quite as powerful as Entropic, but it's kind of close.
It's super close. The fact that like you're hitting on threes when you move is kind of sucky, but you get that free reroll. And yeah, you just I took the last 2 wounds off this. Oh my low guy who teleported can now hit a character that wasn't intended to get hit. 3 damage is no joke. So that was super good. For just it's much better than the Sonic Cannon, sadly. And we just don't have the CP to buy some foo relic. The relic's super great. I love it a lot. I just don't have the CP for it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard with all the good stuff we get. And then you had
all the good
the
stuff.
Solar Flare on the low guy, and
Yeah,
did
I found Solar Flare on the logo worked well. I
was
know that a lot of people are trying to break it up, but it worked well for me.
yeah, did he also have the Luminant Blessing?
Oh yeah, you know it. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
okay, just making
So
sure.
he jumps up with a Vanguard squad 99.9% of the time. They're transhuman and they ignore it P1 and 2, and their fire points telemetry cached. Um, they just don't die.
Hmm.
And so the next turn, when you just go, okay, all those buffs go back on them, your opponent's just like, ugh. I spent a turn ignoring them because they were super buffed, and the buffs just don't fall off with your low guy. Your low guy so close.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a huge benefit being able to move the character and the unit together so efficiently, and you're no longer kind of beholden towards spending command points to teleport them like you were in the past. I guess
Yeah, super good. And the other relic I took would be the omniscient mask um,
Principle of the Raw Stalkers, I'm guessing.
on the Prince of the Rust Stalkers.
Yeah.
Yep, it's the math behind exploding sixes is just straight up +1 to hit.
Hmm.
Um, so the fact that for 1 CP, I mean, I think that most people would buy a strat for that.
Oh, of course.
Most people would spend 1 CP for +1 to hit on a 10-man unit of Rust Stalkers. So to just be able to bake that into your list, and then it combos really well with infiltrators in the middle of the board. It combos really well with your 20-man Vanguard. Very excited for the veterans Qatari all getting an extra attack. Um, and even the cute little strat for the Sicarians to get an extra attack. He just gets pumped up much more value by hitting on essentially twos 95% of the game.
Yeah, the
Then we
fact that it's one command point for an extra attack to all the models seems a little out of hand.
Yeah, I used it a lot. And then if you need to hit that break point of strength 6, you can just throw out 1 more CP.
Hmm.
But yeah, +1 to hit, super valuable. Or I'm sorry, +1 attack, super valuable. And then I spent 1 more CP to get fallback and shoot on the Ranger Alpha. Um,
Oh, okay.
the ability to not lose firepower is super important because you're like, how do you beat the Admech list? You swarm it, you trap it. So now even if you touch 2 things, I can solar flare 1 unit out, and I can fall back and shoot with another unit. Um, it just made me feel safe.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's the I think that's all the pregame requisitions and stuff. I started each game with 7 CP. I spent one again. I pre-gamed 1 deep strike um, breacher unit because the matchup was just good to do so. But yeah, that's all the pregame and list shenanigans. So it's I know it's a again it feels like we're building almost 2,500 points for this stuff.
That's
So
crazy how much we get. It's absolutely absurd. I'm sure we're going to see a points nerf at some point in the near future, but I mean, we got our time in the sun for a little bit.
oh, yeah, maybe another week or so.
So, what do you think? Or I guess, what was the logic behind the one autocannon in addition to two last cannons? Was there any? What was kind of like the thought process there?
I'm sorry, repeat yourself, please.
Oh, what was you took? So you took two last cannons and one autocannon, and each squad of three Iron Striders. What was kind of the decision behind that?
The autocannon is still 6 shots.
It's
Um,
true.
it's still no joke. Um, so we kind of we like that a lot. Um, just to just to be able to pump out volumes into Marines
Hmm.
and to um, into other stuff like that. It's also a points issue. 10 points doesn't sound like a lot, but again, the ability to put 6 shots out is just helpful. It's hard to turn that down. Um, they definitely did not perform like Cognis las cannons.
Hmm.
Cognis las cannons are the best anti-tank we can get. I might be digging through my bits box to find my other las cannons to swap them out. But no, there's nothing wrong with 6 shots at strength 7 multi damage. Um, I think the artisan buff can get thrown on them as well. I think the artisan buff is literally it doesn't even it might not even say core. Let me look that up.
Yeah, well, I mean, they are core anyway, but I guess was there any consideration to maybe doing like a squad of three last cannons and then two auto cannons and one last cannon, or was that just kind of
No,
less efficient?
I like the ablative wounds. I like the ablative wounds.
Hmm.
Like if I start taking damage, obviously the first one goes on last cannons. Um,
Okay,
like that's yeah, just the ability to do that.
okay, so you had the
It's
ability to
pretty
allocate
good.
wounds based on what you were taking damage on. And I guess the one last question before we kind of move on to like the different matchups you had. So you took tasers and flechette blasters on the infiltrators. Was there any consideration for power swords, or was that just like a modeling restriction? Or was that just because of the meta?
Um, the tasers are just really strong. Okay, so the tasers aren't world breaking since they only have 2 attacks each.
Hmm.
But the 25 shots in the flechette blaster is nothing to sneeze at. Um, just there's just a lot of things out there that don't like to take 25 dice. Um, and you kind of your turn one, the goal is to tie something up, right? The goal is to be a nuisance.
Hmm.
So you ideally want to wrap or touch something that doesn't want to be touched. And then if there's just something in combat with them, even if 2 guys live till turn 2, they're just going to shoot 10 shots into somebody's face, which is enough to pick off a wound or two here and there. Um, yeah, I know it sounds kind of silly in the grand scheme of the power of the codex, but I enjoyed having 50 free shots to throw out and just fish for sixes, fish for failed saves. Super super important. And the tasers aren't bad. Just don't. I would very rarely spend the CP for an extra attack or the exploding on 5 tasers. Um, but you're not taking them for their offensive output. So if you are convinced swords are the way to go for it. I would just really recommend the taser just because of the gun.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that is quite a lot of shots to make with the flechette blasters, and it does add up really quickly. And like you said, the tasers are perfectly reasonable. It's not like you're giving up that much for the flechette blasters or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I think, and again, I don't think it's like, oh man, if you take power swords, you're not as smart. It's like it's just whatever. It's your thing. If you got a model as power swords, I don't think I'd break them off. Um, because strength 5 is super huge. Go up and just cut down a tactical squad or another marine squad, but also will cut through the -2 of Lucius if you're I guess it really just depends on your meta. I'm not gonna knock anybody either way for their weapon choice.
Yeah, I mean that's generally what it seemed like with them, and that's why I was kind of curious about those because it could go either way, and there's always kind of everyone I've asked, they've had like a different reason for why they would go with one over the other, and I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think there's just differences of opinion on those.
Yeah, I just think the math just the 25 shots just again that's what I'm all about. So
Yeah.
that's what we went with. And they never ever made a big impact in shooting or melee. That's not their job.
Yeah, it seems about reasonable. Um, so I guess now that we've kind of looked at your list, we can move on to the matchups. And for everyone who's listening and potentially watching us on YouTube, we are going to have these on the screen and everything, so you can always reference them there, and you'll be able to see both Matt's list and his opponent's list. Obviously, there might be some discrepancies in his opponent's list because I have to kind of figure out to the best of my abilities, so there might be something lost, but it's as close as we can get to the most accurate we can be. Um, So round one, your opponent was Iron Warriors. Can you tell me a little bit about what that round was like?
Yeah, super nice guy. Played on a six objective map, if my memory serves. So let me see if I have the tournament packet laying around. But he brought a big Dreadnought spam list with the Iron Warriors either relic or warlord trait that allowed him to reroll ones to hit and wound with vehicles. So it was a good little death ball. Let me just check my packet here for round one. Um, round one was um, yep, Scorched Earth,
Okay.
which is two objectives right on your deployment zone line and two in the middle, 12 inches from your deployment zone. Um, and again, this is where the Rangers pregame move comes in because you can get there on turn one if they're 12 inches off your line. Not to go on a tangent, but it's the sixth objective mission. So right away, I'm taking Stranglehold. I have two objectives in my deployment zone. So I think I'm taking banners. This game, I bet I took Rod because I was more married to Rod and the start of the tournament and switched over to banners after some deep thinking because banners is really good in my opinion. So he was super light on troops, so I knew that I could really just flood the board with value and kind of choke him out because he had a Storm Cannon Leviathan, which only hits on threes now, so it's not as scary. Um, he had triple Deodaros with plasma. Plasma only 6 shots each. Or I'm sorry, 6 shots per dread. So I'm not super worried about it. Um, in terms of it just mulching through Skitarii. He had the Volkite Contemptor, which is definitely scary, but um, not enough for me to kind of just back off. And then he has two Venom Crawlers, which are really good value on the flanks. Um, so I felt like in this matchup, I would be the aggressor. I would be the one kind of controlling the tempo of the game since he did not have enough bodies on the ground. So we went second and lost a bomber and 5 infiltrators, which is um, exactly what we expect.
Hmm.
Um, we lost, I think we lost an autocannon Iron Strider um, due to not. I mean, it definitely wasn't a deployment good play, but I don't think it was an error um, to kind of stick an Iron Strider out the side just in case. He had to deploy a Dreadnought way out of reroll range and way out of any support to get a shot on that Iron Strider, and he took the opportunity, so good for him. But we were super happy with that trade to take kind of a Dreadnought out of the game for the cost of 65-point Iron Strider. Um, Terrain was very symmetrical. I was able to hide most everything else. So we lost turn one. We lost the plane, um, and against his list, we opted for the ballistic skill turn one. Not we didn't go with the save. We
Mm.
went with just ballistic skill turn one because I just thought I could catch the army, catch the shooting. The plus one save would have been super nice against the Storm Cannon Leviathan, but the fact that we could reduce the damage to one made me feel pretty confident. Um, and the fact that we were still saving Volkites on threes since they don't have any AP, um, I felt pretty good about that choice. So don't be afraid to pop the ballistic skill turn one going second if you think that you can deliver a crippling counterpunch, which we thought we could, and we did. So uh, he kills a couple. He kills the flyer, Iron Strider, whatever, and infiltrators. We get the infiltrators in his backfield. The squad that survived, the Rusties get out of the boat and just chop up a venom crawler. Bomber bombs, and then machine gun some cultists to death. Rangers double tap into a T7 dreadnought and just blow it off the table. Minus 2 AP is just ridiculous on a troop like that. So super good turn. The Vanguard are not going to be helpful for me this game. So we blessing them into the center of the table and just kind of create a wall that won't die as we get ready to go charge his librarian, who is doing, or I'm sorry, sorcerer,
Sorcerer.
who is doing not to not to offend the Space Marine players, to charge his sorcerer who's doing warp ritual.
Okay.
Um, so we took table presence immediately. Again, infiltrators help with that a lot. Um, and then we just went to work. Picked target priority. I think was on point. The Volkite again is super scary, but we needed to get the plasma dreads gone because two shots of them will pick up a Iron Strider.
Mm.
Um, and then we just choked him out. Just too many bodies floating around. Turn 3 or 4, the breachers finally get up the board and just start being a nuisance. End of the game, I think we lost the Rusties, the Infiltrators, a Flyer, an Iron Strider, maybe 10 other troops. They just didn't have enough shots.
Yeah, it looked like you were pretty favored against the list that was kind of more elite in this nature. And I'm guessing you probably solar flared the Rangers in this situation instead of the Vanguard because enriched rounds can't injure vehicles.
Oh no, so no, I did solidify the Vanguard as just a wall.
Oh, okay. So you moved them into the center.
Yep, and it's just how do I lose this game? I lose board control. Okay, I'll take board control then.
Oh, okay.
Um, and the Vanguard, you're right, because the Vanguard do not contribute anything offensively in that matchup. So what does their job need to be? Their job needs to be harassing, um, tying, charging things that just don't want to be charged. I mean, I spent like 2 or 3 CP just re-rolling their charges every turn, just to again, we're just threatening anything, threatening everything, um, getting to where we can need to go. Because people forget that just turn 2 when you charge with them, or turn 3 after you jump them, um, you charge something. So you move your 6, you charge. Let's say you roll 7. That's 13 inches of movement. You double your movement for the turn by charging something that you don't have any intention of killing. So we were charging things and then just leapfrogging onto objectives, charging things, cutting off his movement. Yeah, super important to have the Vanguard. They just didn't contribute offensively.
Seems reasonable. Um, what would you say is the scariest thing about this type of Iron Warriors build or Iron Warriors in general if you were playing against them as an Admech player?
The scariest thing is that you get your troops shot up before you can buff them up. So you're not really gonna lose the anti-tank battle because you have Cognis las cannons. But if you get your OBSEC eaten up, because our OBSEC is also our volume of fire, also our anti-infantry, also our screen. They have, it's much different than like a Space Marine player running, 3 units of 5 incursors, where their OBSEC has one job and that's just to stay alive.
Hmm.
We use ours for so much. So If I get if I get Storm Cannon turn 1 where my buffs aren't up and I'm saving on 5s, big trouble. That's super bad. If I get if I get if I lose too many Iron Striders, I lose the anti-tank battle, that's pretty bad. Um, if I get charged and wrapped, that's pretty bad, but that wasn't really applicable in this list. Um, but yeah, those are the two main things that I was worried about is losing too many chickens, which are easily hideable, and losing too many troops, which were took target priority number 1 in terms of hiding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Would you say so? Would you say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being impossible and 10 being really easy to beat, what would you say like this kind of matchup is for an AdMech list like yours?
like a competitive Admech list should not lose to this list.
Okay, so this is pretty much almost like a free win. Not necessarily you still have to play it correctly, but you know what I mean. Kind of like you're
It's
heavily
hard. It's
favored.
hard. It's hard to lose. Um, it's hard to lose just because you're just too. You just have too many bodies. You out efficient. You're just too efficient. I mean, your chickens just look at a dread and kill it.
Hmm.
4 las cannons hitting on 2s, you're rolling 1s. Wounding on 3s, you're rolling 1s. They're doing. I mean, the math on las cannons now on Condus las cannons is 5 damage a hit or five
Oh,
damage
it's
a wound.
ridiculous.
So you're just like, oh, you failed 3 saves. Take 16 damage. Reduce it. I don't care. You're taking too much damage. You're dead. Especially for like a little 9 wound contemptor. Yeah, get out of here.
what would
So,
what would you say would be the fair price in points for a last cannon chicken?
uh, 75 points right now. I think it needs to be 90, man.
I think you're right. So, and the reason I think you're right, in part, if you think about it, two torsion torsion can breachers would have the same amount of firepower for 90 points.
Yeah, and it's on a
Yeah,
worse platform by a lot. I mean, nobody even understands how defensive they are. There's 6 wounds, so you're not just getting leaf blowered. You have a 3-up save, which is a 2-up if you need it to be. So
toughness 7.
you toughness 6.
Oh,
So
is it toughness
not
6? Okay.
yeah, but the fact that you can be a 1-up save with cover from Firepoint Telemetry Cache, ignoring AP 1 and 2, transhuman. They're too defensive for their own good. Um, but yeah, and then they're too offensive for their own good. The fact they can shoot into combat without penalty, which nobody forgets or everybody forgets. So you can just get them tied up and with like a tank or even like a knight, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna shoot you. Don't worry about it. Fall back and shoot is pretty much free because of the warlord trait. They move 10, which is absurd.
Well, they can also
They can
advance and shoot because they're assault.
auto they can auto advance 6 without penalty and still shoot, which I've done to like, okay, how safe do you think you are behind your building? Let me just throw some chickens down the sideline, moving 19 inches, in the right protocol, and just yeeting them down the board. They're just too good. They just do too many things too well. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
90 points for Laz seems fair. Um, maybe 85. I don't know. They're just too good right now. That's
I
all
don't
I
know.
know.
I feel like 90 is kind of the lower limit of what's good, or like not good, but what's reasonable. Because I think if you go 85, they're still too good.
And even at 90, I still would take, 4 of them. I might not take 6, but I'd take 4 of them.
Oh yeah, and that's still
I'm,
fine. I mean, that's
yeah,
still plenty.
I'm comfortable with that being 20% of my list is
Yeah.
the 8 most efficient last cannon shots money can buy.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason I wouldn't take them at 90 points, at least to some amount. So they would still be an easy include. I just don't think they would be as prevalent as we're seeing them now.
It would also give Dragoons a purpose, because Dragoons right now are like, I don't know, 70 points, and it's like, oh, no thanks.
Yeah.
I'll take the Laz for 5 points more, thanks.
Yeah. And you could even at that point, you might even see like torsion breachers or something like that to some extent.
Maybe.
It's hard.
Breachers and Mars are pretty good, where you can get the double reroll. the problem is that that's just our anti-tank. Like that's just it. Like the neutron laser should have been flat 6 damage or something. Um, because now that D3+3 is everywhere, that doesn't mean so much. Um, our other anti-tank would be the Fulmorite cannon, but that's only 3 shots at only a
Quite a
flat
lot of
3
points.
damage. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's very expensive. I think it's like 150. Um,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
you still have Castellans, they can punch things, and Dragoons in theory, and things like that. I mean, Stratoraptor has a last cannon.
Stratoraptor's super strong. I don't personally like to run it, but it's very good. If you want to run 2 Stratoraptors, I think you're gonna be very happy with them.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to kind of round number two, you played against a Tyranid player, and they look like a rather interesting list. Um, Pretty standard, but still rather interesting.
It's very competitive. I think it's the most competitive Tyranids can get. He had double D McCarran, Swarmlord, so you're just in big trouble turn one.
Hmm.
Um, he had 6 Hiveguard and 2 Exocrines that are all in Chronos, which means that his range firepower is actually pretty okay. It's nothing to sneeze at. Um, and then he had 60 Gaunts to kind of flood the board. Um, and then the Lictors for Rod. So he had, I mean, again, it's as competitive as you can get right now with Tyranids, in my opinion, without the, what do you call it, the 900 point Flyer Boy,
Oh,
um, Hydrian or whatever, Hadrian, whatever it is.
yeah. I haven't seen that
Um,
one too much though. I've seen like Demicarians obviously, and I've seen Barbed Heraduls.
Seen Barb Heraldals, Democarians are pretty good. Um, but yeah, unfortunately we went first, and that's all she wrote. We took out, we deleted over 1,000 points turn one.
Oh geez, that
Um,
mismatched.
it's just that bad. Yeah, the bombers bomb the Democarians just to soften them up. Because basically, math says that the Vanguard do 15 wounds to the
Mhm.
Democaran, and it starts with 18. So I needed 3 damage from the bombs. Got 3 damage on bombs. Vanguard deleted one of the Democarans. Um, one group of chickens killed the other Democaran. I mean, when you just if 4 hits, ballistic skill 2 happens, most of the time, and then you turn around and drop 3 wounds on it. Um, or eat 4 wounds because you're wounding on threes, rolling ones. You don't need a CP for damage anymore. That's what's so nice about the Cognis las cannons, is you're getting min 4. So ICP a 2 to wound almost every time on the las cannons. And then homie misses all of his saves and just eats, 20 damage from las cannons. There's the other Dema down. That freed up the other chickens to just Merc and Exocrine. The bombers plus transports is 54 stubber shots,
Mhm.
hitting on twos, just picking up gaunts. Um, and then the infiltrators are just shooting pistols on twos. Like it was literally my best case scenario versus his worst case scenario.
Oh jeez. I mean, he
Um,
couldn't have been too happy about that.
he was a great guy. He handled it really well. He knew right away um, that it was bad news and going to be bad news. And we joked about it and had as fun a time as we could.
That's good to hear.
Um, yeah, but it was not. I just don't see a way. I mean, he goes first. The score is definitely tighter, but he can't kill the Flyers with anything because the -1 to hit really hurts the bugs.
Hmm.
Um, the -1 damage just kills them. I mean, if he wants to shoot the Hive Guard into the planes and do 1 damage 66% of the time, I'm okay with that. Um, and then the chickens just can't get touched because of all the bodies in the way. And then the Vanguard can still delete anything on the Tyranids roster whenever they want.
Yeah.
It's just a bad matchup. Not good. Not good for him.
Yeah, because even looking at it, like, yeah, the Demicarians can do a lot of damage in melee, but they actually have to get in there, and a lot of times they're just going to run into a unit of Vanguard or Rangers, and yeah,
Infiltrators. That's what they're there for. It's just all right. Take the hits. Thank you. 85 points gone. Now I can delete 250 of yours.
exactly. Like the Demicarian's not that survivable. It just hits like a truck, but if you can
I
get
mean,
like enough damage on it,
yeah, it has an invuln. It
has some
has
regeneration. I mean,
has a 5-up feel no pain if it does the trick or whatever,
yeah, use
but
the guy.
it can't get obscuring. It's 18 wounds.
Yeah.
It's if you've seen the model, it's massive. Um,
Mhm.
it's just it takes I can see its tail from over here. I can see its claws from over one of the Nova L's or whatever. Like you just can't hide behind it. They weren't actual Nova L's, but you can't hide. It's just too big.
Mhm.
It's just not the right matchup for Tyranids, sadly. And I don't know what they can do about it.
Well, they can get a new codex.
That would be great. Just put
Supposedly
it.
it's coming. We had some previews that showed off some Tyranid art, so maybe.
They need it. They really do.
Yeah, they're one of the armies that could probably use it. I think them and Tau are probably the most in need of a new codex. And Chaos.
Chaos needs one. Guard needs one. Guard needs one's very, very, very badly too. But
Yeah. I mean, at least
top,
Chaos and Guard kind of pop up once in a while, like in top end results. Tyranids do too to some extent, and Tau obviously as well with, what was it, Nick Nanavani, I think. But, it's so rare comparatively to other armies. So yeah, I guess those four would be like the top new codexes.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But who knows? Maybe they're next in line because it seems like they're showing up a little more in some of the community posts.
Yeah, we'll see. I think with the world opening back up, hopefully they are um gonna
Catching up a
start
little
cranking.
bit.
Yeah, hopefully they're catching up. Yeah, ideally.
Ideally, we can all hope. I mean, Warzone Charadon Book 2 came out pretty quickly. They had to rush it out in addition to the Sisters Codex, and, we might even see a combat patrol sooner than later for them.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean,
Yeah.
I think sisters are not as figured out as Admech, so I'm excited to see what combo sisters can come up with.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, they're making showings. They're not quite as crazy as Drukhari and Admech have been, but they are making appearances and they have won some events, so it's good to
Yeah,
see.
they're definitely not as oppressive, but they just need somebody to sit down with them and figure them out, as opposed to just Admech Drukari. This is how you play them. Let's go.
Yeah. So I guess round three, you played against Slaanesh, and it's interesting because Slaanesh demons were pretty popular early on, and then they seem to have disappeared for a while, and now they're kind of making a resurgence.
Yeah, they're very good. I think they're one of those best. I actually think they might be one of the best lists out there. Keepers of Secrets are nuts. Fiends are incredible value.
Hmm.
Um, anything that can just touch you turn one and then play the mission, which Slanesh does decently well with all just the big bodies in the way and board control and demonettes on objectives. I think they're pretty strong. That was a little touch and go. Um, so we played on sweep and clear, which is table quarters. So a lot of line of sight blocking. Um, but he can still reach out and touch me kind of at will. So we have to be super careful how we have to be super duper careful on how we deploy. Um, and if we go first, great. We won't get maximum damage, but we won't lose the game if we go second. And so we did end up going first. I really wanted to go second that match, but just because he was so well hidden and so far back, I only think we shot like 2 chickens at him turn one, just because I couldn't risk getting them tagged and eaten by a keeper. Um, so the infiltrators again were very important and just controlling the board, pushing them out, advancing, just being nuisances. Because as fast as keepers are, they still have to respect the models. They don't have fly.
Hmm.
He had no interaction with the bombers. I felt really bad for him. All game, they just halved his move. We killed every demon that we saw because he took raise the banners, which I feel like it was a mistake for sure. Um, just because we were able to kill 20 demonettes turn one and just leave him with one squad of 10 trying to run around to every banner and get it raised.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, they only have an invulnerable save, so I'm kind of surprised, like you said.
Well, then he has no interaction with the planes. So what do the planes want to do all game? We'll just shoot the Demonettes. And then so we got turn one. We killed a group of fiends, which was super important because he had 3 groups, I think 5 of them. So we were able to pick
Okay.
up a group of 5 fiends. We were able to slow another group. We had infiltrators middle of the board. We had a boat in the middle of the board with the rust stalkers ready to come out and just dice. And then we actually kept the Vanguard all the way back. He had no shooting. He had nothing to touch them. They literally were just on the back line of my deployment zone. I did not want to zoom them out turn one, um, and just risk them because they were my free click button delete keeper. Um, and he had to come to me eventually. So we did our absolute best to hide them. Um, so we kept them back turn one. We probably could have just gone for it and deleted a keeper and then said, all right, throw everything you got at me. But we wanted to play a little safer than that. Um, Rangers got tied up with fiends and sat there all game. It was ridiculous. He couldn't roll wounds. I couldn't. I killed more fiends than he killed rangers. I think for 2 turns. Just a little slap fight over there. But there's just not much to say. It's a really tough matchup. Um, Ruststalkers performed admirably. Bombers just dropped mortal wounds all game long, and Stubbers all game long. Chickens just kept on nuking whatever they saw. He can only hide for so long. We just ended up getting board control after about 3 turns of just. And then finally, I don't even know if we used solar flare that game, just because he had to come to me, and I didn't want to. The lose condition was misdeploy the Vanguard, have him get hit by a fiend or something, and just get stuck.
Mhm.
So we didn't really want to overextend um, at all. That was just, again, when you're highly favored in a matchup, you lose the game by trying to do too much. I think turn one and two. And so as Admech players, we should probably try to get this down um, in our heads, since we are going to be favored for a while. That if you try to just do too much, I think it's how you lose the game. So, you know, the way that primaries work is that you can actually take a goose egg turn one or turn two and still max primaries. You can take 5 points turn two, 10 points turn three, and still max primaries. It's not like if you get off to a slow start, it's insurmountable. So I think going slow that game was really helpful. Not jumping anything crazy forward, taking very, very little risks in terms of like deployments, and we were going and we were moving. Um, yeah, so that's how it worked out
Slaanesh.
really nicely.
I do have one question about his list though, because it seems pretty standard. 3 keepers, 1 Shalesk or whatever it's called, 30 Demonettes, and then 2 or 3 units of 5 fiends. But he did include 1 unit that I haven't really seen um, within a lot of Slaanesh lists, and maybe this is just because I haven't looked at that many of them. But he had Celesk, the Vengeful Allegiance, which is the guy with the axe with the demonette on his back. How did that play out, and what was do you know what the reasoning behind that was?
It's the monster, so it took 8 mortal wounds and died from bomber.
And that was all it did.
That's all it wrote. I
Okay.
mean, I think it killed. I think it killed the transport at one point, but it was literally just, all right. Is that a monster? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna drop bombs on it.
I'm surprised that it
Okay.
is. I wouldn't have thought it was, but I guess it is. I'm looking at the codex here now. That's the only reason I knew the name. So that's to give you
Yeah,
an idea of how rarely I see it. It's a really cool model. I just very
it's a
rarely.
very cool model. It can attack twice, which is super nice when it can like fiends can lock something in place,
Hmm.
and it can just kind of use all of its movements and consolidations and fights to get into that unit. I mean, because with the consolidation of fight twice, the verbiage in it, you could tie something up with fiends, charge something with whatever its name is, um, consolidate, fight, pile in, kill whatever you fought, consolidate, fight, pile in, like 9 inches in total into the unit that can't fall back, and therefore protect it from shooting.
Hmm.
So I get it, but yeah, it just gets near, boom, boom, and and like 3 random stubbers just picked it up. So,
Yeah.
um,
Did it did
sadly, it was not the day for the fancy dude.
yeah, did they exalt any of their keepers?
Yeah, they had standard 4 up invuln. The really good one was -1 to wound
Hmm.
against ranged weapons, which really does hurt me. So that one got vanguarded real quick the second I could. Since we don't care, we're just four's the hit, baby. And then the other one he rolled for, and he got two irrelevant ones. Uh, Heroic intervention and like a leadership thing.
Okay. And so going back to it, I mean, we saw Iron Warriors was kind of an easy matchup, highly favored. Tyranids, you mentioned that it was depending on who goes first, it goes from highly favored to reasonably good. Um, and then for this matchup, what would you say your kind of like experience would be with a Slaanesh demon list? Would you say you're highly favored, medium favored?
I don't think there's a lot of things that he can do in terms of just the bombers are too the bomb so he just doesn't have any interaction with the bombers.
Mhm.
So it's just sadly just uh, he's going to take 32 stubber shots a turn from them. So that's averaging like 20 hits. That's averaging like 7 wounds. That's averaging almost 5 failed saves into keepers, right? And this is if I'm shooting keepers. It's obviously a lot more damaging if I'm shooting demonettes.
Yeah, I mean,
So
best case they get a what 50-50 of making a invulnerable save.
yeah, that's the very best case scenario, right?
Yeah.
Um, they're on fives most of the other times. So, but let's say I roll low on the stubbers and only do 2 damage to keepers a turn with stubbers. Um, I'm also dropping 6 mortal wounds worth of bombs on them a turn. So that's a total of 8 damage over the course of 5. It's 40 damage onto keepers that he has no interaction with, no plays against, no zoning he can do. It's just that alone just makes it really bad for him. And I know that he can position to where the bomber has to fly off the table, or I know that not every turn is going to be spent bombing a keeper. But the fact that it's just like it's always there, it's always a threat, means that just the pace of the game is just on me. If I want to go slower and just bomb him to death, I can. If I want to just rush on his face and use the bombers to move block, and it's just ridiculous.
Mhm.
I don't know how Slaanesh is going to compete with the Flyers unless they get a trick or two. Because he can't even play the mission because I can just fly over to where his demonettes are and just go doof doof doof, and there goes his home field objective. There goes his banner. There goes his whatever. So um,
Would you
it's
say
just,
there's anything they can ally with, or what could Slaanesh do differently to kind of maybe even it out a bit?
as we'll see down the list later down in round 5, they brought the Lord of Change,
Mhm.
even though that's not a very good. That's not it. What can Slaanesh do?
Because I'm looking at the
They
entry
can
war book.
smite. They can't even smite it. Because we have a 4+ against mortals.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what Slaanesh can do. That's a good question.
Could they just
Feels bad.
outspeed you?
They could. But like we're not pushovers into like then again that the bombers are literally 1/8 of my list. The
Hmm.
rust stalkers drop mortals, which is super effective. The Vanguard pick up a keeper at will. The last chickens and even the autocannon chickens do damage. Like it's just really hard for them. I don't know how assuming the table is fair and balanced, assuming players have equal skill, Slaanesh probably wins that game 1 time out of 20, sadly.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's something they can do because they have a lot of units that we don't see. Again, one of them being the eventual allegiance or whatever it's called. But I'm also looking here. I'm just flipping through the book while we're kind of talking, and contoured epitome gives an aura. Oh no, it's when this model. Never mind. I'm terrible. So
Yeah, no, I ran into the contorted epitome as well.
yeah.
It does eat mortals, so rust stalkers and bombers do bad against it.
Hmm.
it just doesn't do enough.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what it
but
seems like.
yeah, if your goal is to play pure Slaanesh, um, and you're running against Admech, you just gotta try to table them, I guess. And that's very hard to do.
Yeah, I get. Pardon me. I guess I have to very heavily rely on like their fiends and maybe even
Yeah,
seekers.
that is absolutely they have to rely on fiends and they have to get keepers involved with the fiends. Again, keeper charges unit A, fiends charge unit B, keeper wipes unit A, and through good play consolidates into unit B that the fiends charged. So, like, there's play like that, but there's not like, oh, if you just hide behind terrain and play the primary, Slaanesh is okay. It's just not the case. They just
No, Admech
it's
have too much mobility and firepower.
yeah yeah. I mean, again, like, and this whole matchup is also just the looming threat of one CP, you lose a keeper to Vanguard.
Yeah, but on
I
the
mean,
bright side, they can also play Age of Sigmar.
that's very true. Double games. There you go.
There you go, 2 tournaments at the same time.
Something like that.
Yeah. No, I mean I like Slaanesh armies, and the models look pretty cool and everything. So it's good to see they're coming back, but I do agree with you. I think there's very little they can do against some of the meta action that's happening at the time.
Sorry, repeat that.
I was saying, I like the models and everything of the Slaanesh armies, and I like the theme, like the mobility and the damage and everything, and I think it's cool. I'm happy they're coming back or making a comeback because they kind of fell out of the meta for a while. But I do agree with you that I don't think there's a lot they can do in terms
They
of
can have Bellicor. They can have Bellicor.
like, oh, okay. So,
He still dies to Vanguard because we don't care about his hit modifier or his wound modifier.
hmm,
Sadly, Bellicor still dies to Vanguard, but you can at least charge the flyers with him. So
okay,
there is hope. Chaos players.
yeah,
Bellacor's pretty, but Bellacore, like, I don't think Bellacore's army will do good, but I think that Bellacore in a keepers list might be a thing.
that's interesting. I can see him. He's a cool model too. I mean,
Great model, beautiful model.
yeah, and I've seen people paint him up to kind of fit the theme of Slaanesh as well. So there's always
Sure.
that as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I think he's a good addition.
So moving on to round four, this is actually an interesting one. I did not expect to see this one, though it is an army that shows up once in a while. It's just not one of the more popular ones, and I think it's one that you have a lot of experience against, and that being the Iron Hands.
Yeah, the old boogeyman. Um,
Exactly.
I'm sure every Iron Hands player has a Leviathan Dread just laying around, so they seem to make their way into every Iron Hands list. Um, so this was at the big advantage here was that this was end of day. So we played 3 rounds end of day. I had all night to kind of study the list, run through different scenarios. We knew the mission.
Did you know who your opponent was going into day two, or was that
Yep,
announced at the beginning?
nope, he was number one. I was number two, so there was
Oh, okay.
no tomfoolery involved. So that was yeah. So it was helpful just to study everything up, kind of figure out what he's about. Okay, how does he win? Okay, what does he need to do to win? How do I win? Um, his list is super cute. I think it's really strong. Um, and I'm sure you're posting it on screen with your fancy technology. Um,
Yes, internet magic.
so yeah, all that great stuff. So his list, as you all can see, is just wild with the Achilles Land Raider, with the old school Leviathan Dread, with the Las Cannon Contemptor, which was kind of weird, but hey, good for him. Um, and then the what do you call it? The Triple Redemptor, just
Triple.
to have a bunch of bodies everywhere. So he got. I think he won the roll off to deploy to attacker defender and let me deploy first, which was definitely not good because I was able to place my first infiltrator unit. As you can see from his list, he has 2 forward deploying units, um, which needed to die. Um, so before the match even started, obviously, I put the breachers in reserve because they were not going to contribute any long range firepower without just dying. And so I didn't, and they're a beefy unit. I really didn't want to have them just get picked up by plasma. I mean, -4 on the Redemptor plasma is nuts.
Hmm.
So I didn't want to just have, oh, good, I made a 6 up, but 3 breachers died. So we deep struck those, and then I deployed the infiltrators together for redundancy's sake. And their goal was just to get on the board, cause problems. He deployed all his forward deployment right in the middle because he has the Lord of Deceit warlord trait, which allows him to redeploy 3 Phobos units, and he's only running 3 Phobos units, so it works out really well. So he spent his first 3 drops just dropping random things on the board. So I have to kind of figure out how I want to do it. We were able to hide the chickens. Again, we were able to hide the Vanguard and the Rangers, and we were able to just put the bombers to where if they exploded, they wouldn't just kill everything. So we had a really good setup, and we won the roll to go first, which is of course very helpful. So we pumped again. We went first, kind of looked at the table, did some math on how much damage we could inflict, and if we could cripple them turn 1. And the Redemptor's plasma is -4, so I don't really care if I'm getting an extra save, right? That takes me from the Iron Striders are still saving on a 6 up. It's obviously just melting through troops on a 6 up. Infiltrators and Rusties are still on 5 ups. So it didn't really feel beneficial to go into the defensive mode, even staring down all that firepower. So we just flipped on the ballistic skill and tried to go to town. We bombed random dread. Well, we didn't want to bomb random things because he can heal them. So we double bombed Land Raider. We shot chickens into Land Raider. We killed Land Raider turn 1. Excellent, great start. And then we look around the board and we go, okay, let's just kill some troops. And so knowing that he'd have to throw away something for Oath of Moment every turn was super important. So and he took raised banners, which was definitely a mistake on his part. So he was able to deploy the infiltrators turn, just on my line essentially to move block and be as effective as possible. But he just ended up throwing them away. I thought about wrapping them with the Rust Stalkers and finishing them off on his turn, but I didn't want to risk. Desperate Breakout, and then now he's got OBSEC and area denial for my breachers that he can hide behind. So we ended up just mulching his infiltrators with our Rust Stalkers in the middle of the table to kind of clear up the middle of the board. Probably a mistake. Probably could have wrapped them. Oh well, next time we'll make sure to do that. Like I said, we killed the Land Raider, and we just have too many bodies out. The Rangers almost killed a Redemptor by themselves just because they shot 60 times, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, winning on 5s, rolling 1s, putting a Dreadnought on a 5 up is just nuts. So we were able to just decimate his lines with that. Since he had the infiltrators in the middle of the field, we couldn't jump the Vanguard turn 1. That's fine. All the defensive buffs went on the Rangers instead, since that's obviously what was target priority 1 for him. Infiltrators move up the side of the board, try to lock down what we can. And his turn 2 was okay. He killed 2 chickens. We got a little lucky on his last cannon Contemptor not doing as much damage as it probably should have. It is still D6 damage, I think, of the Contemptor. So not ideal for him against 6 damage models, 6 wound models. but we
Yeah,
were
no.
able to, yeah, just not what you want in this day and age against 3 plus D3. So we just were able to kind of control the tempo from there on out. I mean, the Achilles died. There goes 400 points. Um, the Redemptors are just starting to look more and more fragile as they just can't mulch through everything. Small arms fire we're really defensive against. Um, and just the stupid thing with the infiltrators and the rest stalkers is that everyone that dies is only 17 points. So like he killed 9 rust stalkers and 10 and like 8 infiltrators turn one because he had to. So he chunked through like 30 something wounds, less than that,
Mhm.
28 wounds of stuff that has a 5 up invuln, so the math is always tough. And we still felt like we didn't lose much. So that was totally fine with us to lose our midfield presence because then we just jumped the Vanguard in their turn two. Again, we're jumping the Vanguard not as anything more than LOL. I'm on 2 objectives, and now you don't want to shoot the Vanguard because they don't do anything for you.
Would you?
So
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, would you say maybe that's just the general thing of Admech if they just instead of maybe nerfing any specific unit, they just raised points by a certain percent across the board? Because everything seems pretty good. And inversely, if they just drop the points on everything Necrons across the board.
It would help because I mean, like even like rewrite, even like going over the list, it's like I forgot the breachers. I forgot 10% of my list, and it just feels like I didn't even need it because I felt like I was playing with so many points. And then
Mhm.
typing up my opponent's list, I'm like, how many points is a Contemptor Twin Las? It's like 200 points plus the CP. Ugh. And
Yeah, I
then
feel that.
we're over here like, oh, we get 3 last can chickens, pew pew for same amount of points, quadruple durability, uh, core keyword, which they obviously get core as well. But like, it's just too efficient.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy. I mean, plus we have the benefit of having that D3+3, whereas all
three
of
plus
the
three, so big.
yeah, because every codex I think before Death Guard still had the D6, like Necrons and
Yep,
Space Marines.
that's a big problem for Necrons. It's D6 damage
Yeah.
everywhere. But yeah, so we were able just to choke him out. I mean, I don't think he left his deployment zone. He kept on having to throw things away for oath, and you can only throw so much away. We double bombed his contemptor turn two, and did like 6 wounds, 6 mortals to it, and then we exploded one of his redemptors. So he took 2 mortals from that, so we had one left, and then we just picked it up with stubber fire from the closest airplane because it was a character, but we were able just to. And once the airplanes get in your backfield, you cannot shoot them. You just can't do it. Um, the math is just so bad on how much damage you do. Um, I mean, even a fully loaded Redemptor, let's say it gets max shots with his plasma, 6 shots, hits on threes, okay, or hits on fours because you're -1, huh? Um, you're only sneaking through 3 hits. You're gonna drop 1 wound. Chaff launchers, you do 4 damage to it with your signature gun. I mean, the last cannon contemptor strolls up. He's got 4 last cannon shots, hits on fours, so he only gets 2 through. Let's say he wounds you with both. Unless he rolls boxcars, he just doesn't kill you. It's just -1 damage. It just swings that matchup way too much. So the bombers with chaff launchers are just too annoying to deal with.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I've always kind of been on the fence about chaff launchers, but I think you're really selling me on them. And once again, just because of
Well,
how cheap
I'm
Admech is.
never leaving home without them. Like again, like everything that kills them, storm cannons, plasma, um, anything like that's just like, oh, I'll sneak in, 3 shot. Like custodes hate it. Custodes go from, oh, my Telemon can kill it. 2 Telemons can kill it to 2 Telemons cannot kill it. And the difference is if you don't kill a bomber, it just drops mortal wounds on you and flies off the table.
What about
Like
Icarus Dune Crawlers? I feel like those would be pretty decent against the Flyer.
your math is going to make you real sad.
Oh, is it? It's too bad.
I mean, you shoot 4 autocannon shots into it. You hit on 3. I mean, so like an opponent's Icarus Dune Crawler.
Hmm.
So what you shoot it 4 times with autocannons. You hit hit on threes because you're canceling out the negative. Also, the chaff launcher gives you the smokescreen keyword, so 1 CP. You can give yourself an
Oh,
additional -1 to hit. Um,
okay, that makes
so
sense.
you can go back to fours against anti-air stuff like that. So put him on. So you put him on fours. He gets 2 auto cannons in. He wounds you once. You fail a 4 up and take 1 damage. Uh, he shoots the Gatling rockets at you. Gets 2.5 hits through. Gets a wound through. You failed on a 5 up or a 4 up because it's only 1 damage. Gets another 1 damage in. The missile gets through. Hits on fours, wounds on fours. So you're only making a save 25% of the time. And then on math, it does 2.5 damage on average. You don't even bracket it with a Doom Crawler.
Hmm. What would you say is the best like kind of answer to it then? To like the flyers?
Punching it out of the sky with like Vanguard Vets or something.
Yeah, okay.
There's just no good answer. You can't mortal wound it because on a 4 up, we're just like haha. Volkite's wounded on fives, which is just I ran into the triple Volkite contemptor list the night before at a little invitational tournament we had before the event,
Hmm.
and it was just like, okay, so you hit me on threes with exploding sixes because of Tally Man. Um, so you get through out of 16 shots, you get through. Um, let's say you hit perfect. Let's say you get 16 hits. You wound me with 6 of those, half of which are sixes, so I take 3 mortal wounds. And now I got to take 6 2 up saves if I'm in the correct doctrine, or 3 ups, and each fail is just 1 damage each. So even 3 Volkite Contemptors can't kill airplane if it's got chaff launchers.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy when you consider how much the Volkite costs, or the Volkite Contemptor and Death
That's what
Guard
it does to
cost.
normal thing. Yeah, and what it does to normal units. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a reason why they're in 3 of every list. They're insanely powerful,
yeah, I can
but they're
imagine. I mean, it just
but they're
seems like a
no,
better Volkite.
yeah, they're just no match for little chaffy boys. I don't know. I'm trying to give people hope though. I think I mean obviously the more damage, less shots. So like your Meltas, your last cannons. Meltas are great because they go right through the save. We don't even get one.
Hmm.
Um,
Maybe like a
so
sisters list then, with just like
sis,
Retributors.
I was thinking sisters, Necron, Silent King. Um,
I mean,
Fly-
Necrons can also just kind of survive very well, which is something, I guess.
not against Admech
Nah,
though.
probably not. There was a cool Necron list with like triple super heavy with Silent King, the Forge World spider thing,
Oh, very cool.
and then a monolith. Yeah, that's one of those ones that was like made me rethink about like, oh, can Necrons just build like a Titan list?
I would like to see it.
Yeah, it
Um,
placed. It did place. That's the only reason I'll probably end up covering the Forge World super heavies.
sure. Yeah, no, I mean they're out there. And sometimes they just do crazy stuff. The brass scorpion's pretty crazy. Um, the Spartan tank or whatever it is for Space Marines used to be crazy. But yeah, the airplanes are just too good. Um, I know we went way off track with the
Yeah,
airplanes, but
we went way into the weeds here, but that's part of the fun. I mean, if anyone's
yeah,
listening to this, they probably like that kind of thing, and that's it gives a better overall picture of what's happening with Admech and other things as well.
yeah, and that just is like I just won't leave home without two. Um, if you want to do the Regiment of Renown or whatever it's called, Army of Renown, you can only have one detachment, so you're stuck at two.
Hmm.
But if you're not sold on the detachment, which I don't know if I am or not,
And to
I
specify,
think
this is the Skitarii one, not the
correct,
defense, because obviously that one
correct,
can't even have anything nice.
correct. Sadly, so this
Yeah.
is the Skitarii one doesn't offer a lot to the bombers, but the bombers don't need to help.
Mhm.
But I would not if you wanted to take 3 bombers and 2 patrol and 2 detachments. It's almost worth the CP to just say, yeah, I'll take a patrol. I wanted to
Mhm.
take 3 HQs and 4 troops anyway. I like an extra flyer. I would say, yeah, spend the 2 CP to get the 3 bombers.
Yeah, I think it's worth
Um,
it. I mean, I've seen a lot of lists placing that were double detachment, sometimes Mars and Lucius, sometimes pure Lucius. We haven't seen the data horde lists. We haven't seen any of the Metallica lists, obviously, as we were talking before the show, which is surprising on both accounts.
I agree. I'm surprised the data horde. The problem is that the splits of the detachments are awkward, in my opinion. That you can't have your three flyers in the same detachment, and also this is just a rant against GW. Is that they, with their limitations at their events, that your detachments must be entirely different paint schemes. Really, really harshes my vibe against that kind of stuff.
Oh, I didn't know
Um,
that. That's not cool.
yeah, I'm 90. Don't quote me on it, but I'm 90% sure they want different like your different detachments need to be different like paint schemes.
See, I get
Um,
I get why, but I would have rather just they required that the base
I
rim is a different color.
I absolutely get why they do it. Like I
Yeah,
100% want, but I'm not painting my collection two different colors. I'm sorry.
exactly. Because I never know how I'm gonna mix and match it. But like I said, just
Right, and just because it's good this edition or just because it's good in this book, there's no
yeah,
way I'm doing, oh, let me just do two different paint schemes and see what happens. So
yeah,
that's kind of a bummer. And I think you would see more lists like that. Um, the
yeah.
6-up Feel No Pain on flyers is no joke. Um,
No, it's scary.
and
I mean, especially if the chaff launcher makes that much of a difference.
exactly. It's
Like I
just
said,
like,
I'm
oh,
just surprised that they don't let you just paint the rim of the base a different color and make it
yeah,
easily distinguishable.
yep. That's just my how I remember it. I'm not planning on going to GW events, so I'm not
Uh,
sure how.
Games Workshop has done a lot of interesting things lately.
Yeah, like printing up so a codex supplement before people get codexes. Very sad.
That and the did you hear about the animation thing?
Yeah, I
Yeah, I don't like that. Normally I defend GW for most things. That I don't really like.
uh, it's definitely awkward. Um, I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Um, I I get their stance though.
Yeah, I mean they have to protect their IP, but at the same time, I feel like there is a better middle ground. I'm guessing there's something that happened that we just don't know about that's causing some of that, but
We'll
it'll
see.
be interesting to
I
find out what it is one day. So, kind of getting back on topic a little bit, because I know we kind of went off on a tangent there for a little bit. One interesting thing I saw about the Iron Hands list is this one seems to be a little more vehicle heavy, a little more dreadnought heavy, but one that did rather well in another event, placing the top four, was a version of the Iron Hands that ran more of a Centurion Vanguard vet heavy list with some Devastators and attack bikes, trying to really kind of
okay.
capitalize on the feel no pain. How would you say that one compares to this one against Admech?
Jeez. Centurions with what? Devastator ones?
Let me see. Looks like they had assault launchers and flamers.
Oh, geez, that's not good against Admech at all. Since we're just taking that on like a 3-up, and then we're just shooting you too many times for you to count. So the problem with the elite infantry that relies on their 2-up is Admech have Vanguard and Ranger bombs. And so if you're like, oh, I'm on a 2-up with cover, um, okay, we ignore cover on our troops. And then we just blast you with AP1. So you're just failing enough saves.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm assuming you
yeah,
had an Omnispecs and a data tether on your large units of Vanguard and Rangers.
Rangers didn't meet the data tether, but
Ah, okay.
'cause they were always at home base. But yeah, the I don't understand that list. I mean, why not just play White Scars so you can advance in charge? I actually think White Scars are pretty terrifying against us because they can fall back and do all that stuff. So
Mhm.
we can't tie them up with anything important. Like the infiltrators can't just tie things up. Um, they have enough like turn one threat to make us deploy a little suboptimally. Then they have a what do you call it? They have the chaplain on a bike that just
Oh,
goes
okay.
and melts a marshal. They just have a bunch of options that I feel like are the best lineup into us, but it's definitely not.
Optimal.
It's Iron Hands just ain't it. I don't think. I mean, I looked over their book. obviously, because I was playing against them in a very important matchup, and I didn't see anything that just made me scream, I need to be playing Vanguard vets with this list. Um,
Fair enough. I mean, Vanguard vets have gotten a little worse recently, but I think it was more just kind of a mix of the list I'm looking at here had a huge mix of stuff. There's Devastators with multi meltas, attack bikes with multi meltas, a Fire Raptor gunship. That was kind of interesting.
oh, okay, so that's actually weirdly similar to what this guy was running in terms of one big model that you spend one CP to keep in Devastator Doctrine,
Hmm.
and you throw the Iron Stone on it for the for the -1 damage. Um, but yeah, the that just ain't it.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that was a one-off kind of thing. I'm guessing even
sure.
Salamanders are probably better just with like aggressors and things.
The aggressors are, I mean, again, the problem with all these like horde clearing weapons is that I don't care if you have horde clearing weapons. Like I just have a two up against it. It feels really bad. I guess, yeah, it's the White Scars. I think is the scariest Space Marine chapter against Admech.
Yeah, I can
Um,
see that. I mean, White Scars are just great in general.
yeah, they're definitely underrated right now. I think people are, as people chase the new hotness, those loyal to White Scars are going to find themselves doing just fine, I think.
Yeah, because I can't imagine it's Ultramarines. Like Dreadless just don't seem like the right choice because we just have so many heavy-hitting weapons with the Iron Striders.
I like Ultramarines and Theory.
They're good against Drakari, but Drakari seem to have fallen off a bit.
Yeah, they're good against Drukhari, but yeah, they are good against Drukhari. You know what? I think Ultramarines are still okay. I think White Scars are the best.
Hmm.
Um, I think Iron Hands do have play. Six that feel no pain is really strong, whether you think so or not. Especially on Redemptor Dreadnoughts, especially when you get healed. Um,
I mean, the feel no pain against immortal or against mortal wounds and sisters is good enough to be a consideration in some cases. Mortal wounds are becoming more prevalent, so I like a 6+ general feel no pain is really good. I like the Iron Hands a
it's
lot.
really good. It's two extra wounds on your Redemptor.
Yeah.
So if your Redemptor survives on two wounds and then gets healed up to six, or
Hmm.
yeah, because the Tech Priest Master Man, whatever, heals them up
Yeah.
extra. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm operating a top bracket. Still annoying. Let's go ahead and give me Mighty Heroes. Let's go ahead and give me Size Steel Armor. And let's go ahead and give me Sacred Fortress. And now it's like I gotta do this all over again. Gross.
So where would you say Iron Hands is against Admech? Are they an easy matchup, a difficult one? How are you feeling like in that game specifically?
Talking to my opponent, we think that he thinks, and I agree, that if he goes first, he wins about 30% of the time.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah, that is not a feels good.
Yeah,
But
I mean he's heavy on dreadnoughts and other big units that don't fare well against Admech.
I also don't think his list. I think his list is just too troop light. I think there's just so much. Uh, that's honestly comes down to Admech being so good. Is that our OBSEC and troops are just so powerful. I think it's why sisters should still have play when their 20 Lady Blob can get transhuman and still be powerful. Um, it's why Death Guard are good with. I don't know. I think Don Houston's Plague Marine spam has fallen out of fashion,
Yeah,
but
it's
there's
kind of
just
falling
a
apart.
lot. Yeah, but there's just a lot of value in an army that has good troops.
Yeah,
Drukhari,
Death
yeah,
Guard have been coming back surprisingly enough, which is cool to see. I mean, they're an interesting part of the meta that doesn't necessarily always make sense, but they seem to kind of crop back up like an infection.
that's kind of what they do, right?
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah, yeah, they're interesting, um, for sure. I love our matchup into them though.
Oh
Um,
yeah, we're one of their worst matchups. Like they want to be close and personal, and as long as we just can keep out of range of their mobility, we're very heavily favored.
well, they're slow and we're fast, so that's nice.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that,
A
we have
lot of light
no
fire.
we have no 2 damage shots,
Yeah,
which is all they want. Which is all they want to face. We're
exactly.
just like, nope, take 3 minimum from last cannon. So there goes your Terminator.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah, like
Um,
I don't think we have a bad matchup right now, which is not a good thing.
Knights are a bad matchup, if to be honest.
I don't. Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, even with a lot of Iron Striders, it can be a little awkward. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
Knights are definitely like one of the actually surprisingly good matchups that they're not even good, but they're the best shot.
yeah.
Um,
What about like the Mortarion Knights Zinch list?
oh, Chaos Soup.
Yeah,
We delete. You gotta remember we delete any non-vehicle.
yeah. True,
So
Mortarion gets crushed.
Mortarion has to take 15 4-ups, or I'm sorry, 30 4-ups.
Hmm.
Uh, whenever he shows his face, it's just bad.
Yeah.
Like, and if I mean, it's a good segue into round 5, um, which is priority target, which is my least favorite mission because it's very easy.
Okay.
Um, he had demon list that I'm sure is going up on the screen, keeper of secrets, Lord of Chains, Chicken Boy, 2 groups of fiends, 30 pink horse with splits, little dork nurglings, and the epitome. Um, and yeah, Lord of Change did his best. He got off a massive infernal gateway that did like 10 mortal wounds. It was like his best start. He went first.
Hmm.
And then the 15 and then the 30 Vanguard were just like, all right, get out of here. Take 10 damage from them. Just like with math, just says you take 10 damage. And then a couple last cannons, a couple bombs later. Um, there he goes. So Mortarion does about the same, especially now that he can't get warp time. Oof.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough one.
Yeah.
And with miasma, it doesn't matter either, because enriched rounds can
Yeah,
get
we don't
around
care.
that.
We don't care. We
Yeah.
don't care about miasma. Yeah. And Rich Rounds gets around it. We're all ballistic skill 2 for a turn. And then the Rangers suffer the heavy penalty anyway, normally, if you don't want to invest the galvanic volley. Yeah, the secret relic, the raiment of the Techno Martyr, is very, very powerful.
Hmm. And how did round 5 go? I guess.
About the same as the Slaanesh round. He went first. He played me super tight. He had double bloodletter bomb that I kept on leaving holes for. Um, when I wasn't playing well. It was a long day. These last 2 days.
Hmm.
Um,
Where did the bloodletters come from?
Deep Strike, or in his list, the demons.
Oh, okay, so they were just summoned in.
No, he had them in his list, and they get the 3d6 charge.
Oh, okay.
So they just go wherever they want.
So he.
And I go ahead.
Oh, sorry, because I was just looking at the list I was sent over. I don't see any bloodletters in it, but
Oh, I forgot to put them in.
ah,
We
makes
played we
sense.
played we played each other at the Invitational the night before, and I tabled them at the top of turn 2, so I didn't even get to play against them.
Oh,
So
okay.
but they kept them in the game, and if I was playing a little tighter,
Hmm.
we would have been fine. But I just kept on like prioritizing damage over leaving holes. I was getting a little frustrated with the way the fight in the middle was going. And so I kept on thinking I need to bring more support there. When if I had just used my noggin and just scream my backfield, it would have been a much easier game. But it wasn't. It was a hard fought game. It was only like a 5 or 6 point game because of those errors, um, allowing him to get some free points in the backfield and make easy charges and just delete things that shouldn't have been deleted. Um, But yeah, so he moved up turn 1. The infiltrators caught, did exactly what they were supposed to do, and caught all of his fiends,
Hmm.
um, and sat there for the whole game just fighting fiends, which is exactly what we want, um, because we don't want anything of value getting touched by fiends. It's very bad for us. Um,
Exactly.
So the infiltrators caught the fiends. The bombers bombed and killed Demonettes off his home field objective, which was massive and priority target, right? So
Mhm.
the fiends killed his backfield objective, which means that he needed to um, keep his keeper of secrets on his backfield objective the entire game.
Oh, okay.
He had nothing else because we killed the Demonettes. The Nurglings were on the side objectives, being obnoxious.
Mhm.
So keep his keeper of secrets there. And then the middle of the fight was just Rust Stalkers, Infiltrators versus Pink Horrors, but we ended up just drowning him in enough dice over the course of the game. I mean, the Rust Stalkers attacked like two turns in a row, so there's 80 attacks.
Mhm.
Um, and we were just able to fight him off that objective finally. Um, but yeah, super close game. I really wish I'd played with my 5-man units of Rangers better. I should have recognized that he did not have enough small units to kind of split fire and pick them off. So they should have been just backfield objective holders.
Mhm.
Instead, I've been used to using my Rangers to push forward with their pregame move, um, and I needed to adjust that. I needed
Mhm.
to swap that around.
And
Uh,
did the Contoured Epitome do anything, or?
She was obnoxious because my Rust Stalkers couldn't kill her because she just ate her mortal wounds on 2-ups, which felt bad. That was the whole reason I'm bringing her. Um, the whole reason I'm bringing the Rust Stalkers is to do mortal wounds. But
Yeah.
we ended up just once the Rusties got out of combat, we just shot her with stubbers and killed her.
Okay. Um, yeah, so once again, you would say that's probably just kind of a not the worst matchup for you. Pretty easy if you play it 100%, but
If I play better, it's definitely easier. I mean, he played a hell of a game, and he squoze every inch out of his army.
mhm,
Um, every inch out of his army and still came up short against me, who's playing not great, and he's just a better player than me.
mhm.
Um, so hopefully, if there's ever a rematch, we can play a little tighter and keep the stompy times coming.
So would you say maybe that's, I guess, one disadvantage of Admech is that in long tournaments, especially after a couple days, the amount of units you're moving around does become kind of mentally taxing.
Yeah, I actually think it does. I mean, the meme right now is obviously just anybody can play Admech.
Mhm,
Um, but it is difficult to balance all those to move all the units and remember your pregame moves and remember your command phase and remember definitely your command phase, um, which I
Yeah.
have tokens for, and I recommend everybody get tokens for their command phases.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think, even though AdMech's kind of overpowered right now, there's still a lot of skill in playing them. I mean, it's just that you're seeing very top end players at some of these events playing against each other, and that's where that difference matters. But in a more casual game, I think it's a little more balanced.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, because again, a 5% difference in a highly competitive game is actually a much bigger difference than it would seem
Yeah, no,
like
I
on
agree.
paper.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I guess is there any matchups that you kind of dodged that you were happy about dodging?
I dodged the mirror matchup. There was only one
Hmm.
other Admech player who lost round two, and then packed it in for the day.
Oh, what did he lose to?
Um, he lost to a Eldar list
Mhm.
that is probably tailored to kill Admech. Triple Night Spinners is really, really, really good. Um, because we're saving on sixes or fours. There's no in between. It's always getting blast. It's ignoring cover, which is
Mhm.
massive. Um, so it's just a very good unit against us, the Triple Night Spinner. And then it's got some Dark Reapers in there, which I don't think are very good, but
Mhm.
that's just my opinion. Um, and then I think it had a Harlequin backbone, so it just can put pressure on you and just fire 36 shots that ignore cover with a reroll. I mean, the player played really well and knew exactly what he was doing. So I think he just picked up troops all game, um, and just kept on killing Admech troops and Admech troops. Again, take this with a grain of salt because I wasn't able to get the full breakdown. Um, but that's what I would do if I was an Eldar player. 12 the temptation to shoot vehicles with night spinners is just not it's just not the play. When you get a guaranteed 12 shots into Admech troops. Um, so you just bomb those. I mean, 36 shots, you hit, you're rerolling ones, you have a free reroll for a two, you hit, let's see, you roll well, you hit 30 of them. We're not transhuman if you go first, and you have enough range to kill the non-transhuman unit. So you're getting through um, like 26 wounds. And unless we're in the save doctrine, the best we can do is a 4-up.
Yeah, that gets kind of dicey kind of quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the Harlequins just provide enough pressure to give you fits. We don't so much care about the Haywire because with the 4-up
mhm.
and the 1 damage makes our saves pretty reliable against them. But yeah, mean list there with the Night Spinner backbone.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, Harlequins were dominating for a while, or at least doing very well for a
Yeah,
little while.
they had a moment in the sun. Um, yeah.
Yeah, they've fallen off a little bit. Um, so I guess what changes would you make with the new Army of Renown and the Book of Fire?
I'm fighting that right now, actually. Um, I don't know. Um,
Do you think
I
it'll make
don't.
that much of a difference?
It depends on how long you want the podcast to go. Um,
It's up to
so
you.
I mean I have a lot of thoughts on the Army right now. So the idea is, ironically, you want to take less troops since you're paying more for them.
Hmm.
In my opinion, right? So the troops become very good. They get a 5-up invuln. Rangers get cover if they stay still. Vanguard ignore blast, which is very important, as
Hmm.
we just talked about. They all get an extra attack and extra leadership. The extra attack is massive because it's a doubling of attacks. That is insane. They do go up 2 points a model, so you're up to 10 points a troop. So you get those things with your troops, but you get 4 stratagems and a relic that matter a lot. The relic allows you to put any Scutari unit with data tether, you know how it works, or a unit within 9 inches into any doctrine you want.
Is it in
Uh,
addition to or in
in
replacement?
addition
In
to,
addition to. Okay.
So what you can do is, if you're feeling spicy, you can have your group of raiders on the front line get ballistic skill 2, then have them ignore the negative to the weapon skill because of the um, because of the martial ability,
Hmm.
and then throw this relic on them, which will then give them weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3. So you go up a ballistic skill, down a weapon skill, ignore the down on a weapon skill, go up on a weapon skill, go down on a ballistic skill. You're sitting on threes and threes. A lot of effort to get there. But now you have a shock troop that hits on threes turn one, and the rest of your army can still hit on twos. You can keep one unit of chickens hitting on twos the entire game.
Hmm.
That's a big deal. Um, that's a massive deal. Um, I can't stress how big of a deal that is. You can have a unit of Rustdoggers hop out of a boat, get stuck in combat, and give them a +1 save on your next command phase because the boat gives them data tether.
I mean, also
Um,
the +1 attack on a charge.
yeah. So then you unlock 4 stratagems, right?
Hmm.
And these 4 stratagems are really what I think you build your list around if you're going with the cohort. You get an insane. They're all very very good stratagems. So one of them
Yes.
is 3 CP, so it's very expensive, but 2 of your veteran cohort core units, which because you're playing Admech is about 80% of your army, get +1 to wound against a certain enemy unit,
Hmm.
but they can only attack that unit. So chickens Yeah, last cannons wounding anything knights on twos, great. What I think it's going to be most useful for is like two 20-man blobs of rangers, just melting whatever they need to. You can use this on, I mean, it's 3 CP, so you don't want to get too cute with it, but you can use this on two infiltrators against Keeper of Secrets and uh, turn one and just drop 50 shots into her and wound her on fives, doubling your wounds. Again, 3 CP, you don't want to get too cute with it, but that's a super good offensive hit right there.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it does. Isn't there also a way to reduce the cost of all of these, with depending on the doctrine that's active?
yeah, it's a warlord trait, but I don't think it's very good.
Okay.
Um, because at best case scenario, you get 4 CP, which is incredible, but I just don't
I
think it'll happen as much as you think
feel like the
because you got
holy
to
orders
do
are just better at that point.
the holy orders are better for sure, and it's just really tough to time it right.
Hmm.
Because you would need to use this one when you're doing ballistic skill. You need the other one when you're doing weapon skill. You need to do the other one when you're doing the movement bonus. And it's just like if you miss two of those, you're spending a CP for this warlord trait anyway, because you need all the default ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about the warlord trait, but then another great stratagem that you get out of it, any Skatara unit that makes a charge plus one to attack.
Hmm.
Done. 1 CP. Combo that with your Ruststalkers, barf out 50 attacks. Combo that with 20 random Skatari bros, and now you're doing 60 attacks with Skatari. Um, Combo that with I don't know, whatever you want. It's anything that charges is now a very big threat. Um,
Yeah. I mean, the amount of power you get from those stratagems, as well as even just the basic buff to the units, but at least you're paying for command points for that. But the stratagems are incredibly strong.
yeah, then the another one, which is again pretty nuts, is a 5 up feel no pain. For 2 or 3 CP on any core unit. Power rating 10 or more is 3.
Hmm.
So, which you might think is um, a lot, which it definitely is. 10 power level is now because of the changes, 10 Rangers. Um, let me make sure I'm reading it right. Yeah, so what you need to do is you need to do 19 Rangers now, is what you're going to start to see. 19 Rangers, 19 Vanguard. But 10 power level also sneaks in Ruststalkers. So
Hmm.
Ruststalkers with a 5 up feel no pain. Barf, gross. Um,
Here's a
uh,
dumb question. Does this remove your dogma benefits like the other Army of Renown?
what dogma benefits?
Well,
Lucius and stuff? No.
so this one allows you to keep your dogma benefits, unlike the defense cohort, which would remove them.
Yeah, all units supposed to be drawn from the same Forge world. But there are no drawbacks like that.
Oh, that's crazy. That's nice.
Yeah. Your warlord must be Secretary Marshal. You can only have one Manipulus, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that
Uh,
one's pretty big. I mean,
that
but you
one's
could take
that
another
one
tech priest as well.
That one's almost enough to make me get off this build, but the fact that you can just go, oh, you're shooting a heavy bolter at, you have a bunch of 2 damage weapons. Let me just ruin your day with 5 up feel no pains on my 2 wound models. The math behind feel no pain on 2 wound models is insane.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, we got that. Um, and then the last one is straight up advance and charge.
Yeah, that one was nuts too. Anything that lets
Yep,
you advance and do something is very
very
powerful.
strong, very
Yeah,
strong.
as we saw with
Uh,
Argent Shroud, Battle Sisters.
yeah. So the advance and charge is massive.
Hmm.
Advance and charge on Rust Stalkers, advance and charge on your Vanguard that are now advancing at 2d6 shot the lowest. Uh, what I think is the secret sauce is ponies, moving 12, auto advancing 6, and then charging.
Talking about the Sulphur Hounds or the Raiders?
Raiders.
Oh, okay.
So Raiders move 12 pregame, um, get whatever buffs you want, ballistic
Hmm.
skill, weapon skill, whatever. Um, charge or advance 6, shoot at full ballistic skill because that's how the stratagem works. Follow that up with a sweet charge, and then give them +1 attack. So now they have 5 attacks a model hitting on 3s.
What about dragoons?
It is a the stratagem. Sadly, I think is a not vehicle.
Oh, is it?
Let me quadruple check.
Yeah.
I that was my first thought as well.
I have the. Let's see. I
Oh,
have.
yep, excluding vehicle units. Very
Ah,
sad.
why would they do that? The only thing that
Uh,
benefits is like dragoons.
yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but dragoons are still. I think dragoons can still be okay here. With the with
Plus
+1
one
attack
attack. Yeah.
strategy. Yep, that's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean that's probably
Um,
good enough. But it's
yeah,
a little bit
so
sad because you can't charge them.
yeah, there is some play here. I'm gonna play around with it and try to figure out if it's worth it. Um, losing the Manipulus is massive. It's massive. It's enough to make me kind of not almost want to worry about this list now.
Yeah, but if
Um,
you're reducing the number of troops you have, I could see potentially just well, you still want 2 blocks of 20 almost.
you still want 2 blocks at 19 to sneak in that power level for
Yeah.
the field no pain. But yeah, you still, but then you don't get Omni specs and data tether. So there's some choices to be made here. Kind of feels like if you're choosing between scoring 100 points or 99 points, but there's some play here for sure.
Was it? Let me check one thing on the Omni specs and data tether as well, because I
I
feel
think you need every 10 models you take. Or
yeah, you might be right, but I think there was one for you can take one for under 9, and then
yeah,
but
and so you probably want to take the Omni specs because ignoring cover is very important. But with a data tether, some stuff can get funky.
yeah, for every 10, you're right.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it's very there's a lot of choices to be made. I'd be happy to propose a couple of lists with or without this going forward. And again, there's an FAQ coming down the barrel. There has to be.
Yeah, of course. I cannot imagine they're gonna allow things to continue as they are. I mean, they allowed Drakari to hang out for a while, but then and again, it doesn't have to be a massive change, but you know,
So we'll see. But that's the veteran cohort, which I'm going to try to make work. I have another GT here. Um, in Ohio in a week.
hmm.
So the Book of Rust or Book of Fire, whatever we're on, just snuck in their rules cut off. So I think I'm gonna try to make it work. I just am unsure. Um, I'm just unsure how to do it. The losing Manipulus is a big deal to me. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely makes sense. I mean, the Manipulus does add quite a lot. It's one of the reasons why Admech is so powerful. But yeah, if you do end up doing it, or if you don't, I'd be happy to have you on the show again after you go through that, win or lose, just to see kind of what your opinions and impressions of the Admech have changed since then.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
Instagram is the best place to reach out. I do commission painting. I'm happy to talk about Warhammer, obviously, whenever. Um, that's going to be at Matt's Man Bun. So it's MATTS.MAN.BUN. We've been slacking off on posting recently because we've been grinding down for this tournament scene. But yeah, I think anybody wants to reach out, that's the place to do it.
Definitely, and I'll have a link in the description below. So if anyone's having any difficulty finding that, just click on the link or go to the link right away, so you don't have to search, and you'll be able to go right over to his Instagram. And his painting looks great. So if you're ever looking for a commission painter, Matt's the guy to go to, and he's a GT winner. So how can you go wrong?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's very nice of you.
Yeah, as always, thank you so much for coming on, and hope to see you again.
All right, man. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Have a good one.